Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on The Romanov Sisters by Helen Rappaport. The Romanov Sisters is a non-fiction account of the four daughters of Tsar Nicholas II and Empress Alexandra, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia. They were the most talked about royals back in their day, but their life was anything but a fairy tale. Their father was the leader of Russia, a country that was beginning to hate him. Their mother was sickly and unliked by the people. Their brother, the heir to the Russian throne, was a hemophiliac, and they had to go through the horrors of World War I. This account seeks to showcase the individual personalities, the hopes, loves, and fears of these four young women who died so tragically. This book was so wonderfully researched. I thoroughly enjoyed it from start to finish. I am someone who could easily get bored with nonfiction. Nonfiction is notorious for kind of being dry and boring on occasion if you don't got the right writer. And the amazing thing about this account of the four Romanov sisters is Helen Rappaport's beautiful, gorgeous, descriptive writing, and it oftentimes almost feels like a work of fiction in some ways. I was never bored at all, and the pacing of this book was just really great, very easy to follow. So yeah, basically what I'm saying, this isn't some stiff academic work. Anyone who knows me knows that I love historical fiction, especially based off of the Russian period, the Russian Revolution, the Romanovs. So obviously I also really enjoy Russian-based nonfiction in regards to the Romanov family. I have read quite a few things about Tsar Nicholas II, I've read quite a few things about Empress Alexandra, I've read a few things about Rasputin, and I've read a lot about just the general atmosphere of this time period. But the one thing that I have not read is this really great lengthy account of the Romanov sisters. In any given piece of nonfiction, the Romanov sisters are kind of relegated to the background, where they just kind of linger, and you never get a great sense of their personality. And they're often just surrounded by these larger-than-life presences that dominate the Russian Revolution. So it was great to read this book and get to know these young women and go beyond the basic facts that I had already known. Even though this book is called The Romanov Sisters, and the synopsis of this book sounds like the whole thing is about the Romanov sisters, in some ways this book is not just about them. It also talks quite a bit about their mother, Alexandra. The book starts off with kind of an overall look at Alexandra's life, how she grew up, her family life, and everything leading up to her marriage to Nicholas, and you get to see kind of how she grows and develops into the type of person she is by the end of 1918. I read quite a few other reviews on Goodreads, and a lot of reviewers kind of didn't like the fact that the story kind of focused so much on Alexandra and other central figures, and they were disappointed with the lack of the Romanov sisters, which I kind of have to disagree with, because I do think this book was very heavily focused on the Romanov sisters. You can't talk about the Romanov sisters without talking about all these other events, because all these other events are what eventually affect them and affect how they live and ultimately lead up to their deaths. You have to talk about Alexandra, you have to talk about how sickly and paranoid she is. And then you also have to talk about Alexei, because Alexei, he's a hemophiliac, and all of that, which introduces Rasputin into the picture, and then how Rasputin affects their lives. So you have to have all of these things, plus the events of World War I added on top of that, in order to understand the lives of these four girls. But yeah, once it moves on from Alexandra's story and her history, and then the novel starts going in chronological order and goes through each of the girls' births. The one thing you have to keep in mind while reading this book is the fact that the Romanovs, not just the girls, but their mom and their dad, they had to burn a lot of their letters and diaries, so not much actually survives from that period. All that we kind of have from this time period comes mostly from the people who were around them and the letters that were kind of sent back and forth that way. One very important thing to note about this book is that Helen Rappaport purposely stops right before the death of the Romanovs. A few years ago, Helen Rappaport wrote The Last Days of the Romanovs, Tragedy at Ekaterinburg, and this is basically the whole thing of the murder of the Romanovs, including all of the forensic elements once they were all unburied. So if you want kind of a complete story of the Romanov sisters, you do need to definitely read this book first and then this one, because like I said, this one stops right before they get to their final destination, and then this book is the entire last, I believe, 14 days of their lives. And I do highly recommend this book as kind of a companion piece to this one. This one is just as fascinating, especially all the forensic details, you know, the modern science, a look at all of the remains and figuring out whose bones belong to who. Just a really intense read. So yeah, I highly recommend this one as well. Another great thing that Helen Rappaport does in this account is that she seeks to uncover this overly idealized and sentimental look at these four young women. And because of this over-idealized, sentimental look at these girls, a lot of people have never really gone beyond and looked at these girls as real women and women who had their own lives and their own personalities. And oftentimes people just kind of look at them as these tragic, martyred figures. So what Helen Rappaport does is she really gets deep down into the core of each girl, and each girl's personality really shines. And they're not just some collective, because oftentimes in Romanov nonfiction, the girls are just a collective. They're just the four Romanov girls, and there's nothing defining or characteristic about them. So Helen Rappaport really just goes beyond the basic information that a lot of people already know. That's why there's so much focus on Alexandra in this book, because of her sickly, paranoid, overprotective nature that heavily influences how these four girls live. Because they never got out much. They constantly spent their time with their family. They never really got out into Russia. They never got to learn about their own people. And so this caused them to develop their own insecurities and made them a bit naive. But kind of contrasting against their insecurities and naivety, Rappaport also shows how intelligent these girls were, how compassionate they were during World War II, and the fact that they weren't stupid. They clearly knew what was going on in the country and that there was some bad stuff coming. Overall, I highly recommend this book. It is thoroughly enjoyable. I really recommend it, especially if you do love the Romanov period, and especially concerning Tsar Nicholas II and the fall of the Romanovs. I was worried I was going to go into this account and be depressed, because oftentimes the fate of the Romanovs just greatly disturbs me and disgusts me and angers me, because these girls and their brother and their parents did not deserve to die in the manner that they did. So I was worried that I would just be feeling depressed this whole book, but surprisingly, I found myself kind of laughing and smiling on occasion. That's just how good Helen Rappaport writes these girls and describes them, because their individual personalities do truly show. And you come to realize that these girls, they just wanted to crack jokes, they wanted to have fun, they wanted to make fun of each other on occasion, and they also wanted to flirt with cute boys. So yeah, this account, it's not just one big, huge, long, depressing read like I was anticipating. There's also a lot of really good humor and some joyous moments scattered in there. So that's it for my review, you guys. I hope you enjoyed. Have you read this book? Do you plan on reading it? Let me know your thoughts down below. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you liked this book review, you may like these. Bye, guys.